This is a part 2 with my first reaction video to the Brian Kelly, the meltdown over his comments and the spinning of his comments. One thought I also have, and I'd like you, if you're watching this one and you're kind of just jumping into this, definitely watch the first one that we did, because this is definitely part 2, kind of finishing some thoughts from it. So if you're like, hey, you didn't bring up this or think about that, well, watch the first one. It might be in there. But what really just made me think about doing this was the fact that I'm sitting there thinking, everyone's thinking, what's wrong with LSU? Their NIL must be so messed up. Brian Kelly doesn't want to buy players and blah, 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 blah. And what's funny to me is the fact that someone could look at LSU and say that's not a place where you can build a brand. That's not a place where you can have strong NIL earnings. When I think LSU is the only school that has multiple people in the top 10 NIL earnings on On3. On3's NIL tracker. They've got 3 of the top 10 that were in there. Jaden Daniels, of course. Livy Dunn was number 1. I mean, LSU probably built brands, pro-ready brands. Like, look at what Jaden Daniels did. Look at what we did for Malik Neighbors. You can't get that anywhere else. And that was practiced and put into formation starting with Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, that 2019 group. So this idea that, a guy like Bryce Underwood shouldn't be going to LSU because that's not a place where he's going to be able to build his brand. He's not going to be able to make earnings off of what he should, He should be making money. He's so good. But they're going to be making that money at LSU. They're going to be fine. Brian Kelly literally just said he's just not willing to throw, $3 million for a pair of defensive tackles that have never played it down for LSU. He's got guys on that roster right now who've won games for LSU. You think he's going to pay a defensive tackle more than he's going to pay Mason Taylor, a guy who beat Alabama for him? Don't think so. You think I just think people haven't watched the full interview. And I feel like people, especially a lot of these ill-informed LSU fans, and I'm definitely not talking to you. I know the people who are watching this, listening to this, are informed LSU fans who are kind of looking at this like, yeah, I would love to be buying every player up and be able to just have everyone. Of course I don't want weaknesses on the defensive line. But I don't want to blow up my fucking locker room to do it. To get one of these guys who's a rent-a-player, a guy who might not even have a single fiber of love for LSU in his entire being, Do we want guys like that filling the locker room 3 years from now? That's the question you've got to ultimately ask yourself, is how winning is the ultimate thing, right? Of course. How much are you willing to sacrifice? How much are you willing to cross those lines? How many principles are you willing to lose? I don't think it's about how much money they're willing to throw out with LSU. I think they're being, very choosy about how they're going to do that, of course. They want a strong return on those investments, just like anybody. But it's much more measured, much more calculated, and it's about earning it. And I understand that's not going to play well in today's Shader Sanders society. We'll continue talking about this.